Vermont and New Hampshire share a border that runs 90 miles. They're almost identical in size. They both have covered bridges, white church steeples, and forests that turn fire red in October. From the highway, you can barely tell them apart, but they are, politically, economically, and geographically, two of the most different states in America. One has no income tax and no sales tax. The other has among the highest property taxes in the country. One was an independent republic before it was a state. The other was the first colony to declare independence from Britain. And at number one, there is a geographical fact about these two states that most people who've lived there their entire lives have never noticed. It involves a map, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm statesXplained. These are 35 differences between Vermont and New Hampshire, counting down to the one that will change how you look at both of them. Let's go. Number 35. Vermont is the only state in New England that doesn't border the Atlantic Ocean. Completely landlocked. New Hampshire, meanwhile, has a coastline. 18 miles of it, the shortest of any coastal state in America. Vermont has 0. New Hampshire has exactly enough. Number 34. Vermont has the smallest capital city in the United States. Montpelier, population about 8,000. And it's the only state capital in the country without a McDonald's. New Hampshire's capital, Concord, has about 45,000 people and the full fast food experience. Same region, completely different idea of what a capital should look like. Number 33. New Hampshire was the first American colony to declare independence from Britain. January 5, 1776, 6 months before the Declaration of Independence. Vermont, meanwhile, wasn't part of the colonies at all. It declared independence from New York, not Britain, in 1777, and became its own independent republic for 14 years before joining the United States. Number 32. Vermont produces more maple syrup than any other state in America. 3.1 million gallons in 2024, about 35% of the entire U.S. supply. New Hampshire produces maple syrup too, but a fraction of Vermont's output. This is not a competition. Vermont wins by a very large margin. Number 31. New Hampshire has no state income tax and no sales tax. Vermont has a top income tax rate of 8.75% and a sales tax of 6.36%. On $100,000 income in 2026, a New Hampshire resident keeps $6,350 more per year than an identical earner in Vermont. Same border, completely different tax philosophy. Number 30. Vermont has banned billboards since 1968, one of only 4 states to do so. Drive through Vermont. Open fields, forest, sky. Drive through southern New Hampshire. The full American commercial roadside experience. Same New England, different visual philosophy. Number 29. New Hampshire holds the world record for the highest wind speed ever directly observed by a human being. On April 12, 1934, weather observers at the summit of Mount Washington recorded a gust of 231 miles per hour. That record stood for 62 years until an automated station in Australia measured 253 miles per hour during a typhoon. Mount Washington still holds the record for the fastest wind speed ever directly watched by a person. Vermont's highest peak, Mount Mansfield, tops out at 4,393 feet and has perfectly pleasant weather by comparison. Number 28. Vermont was the first state in America to abolish slavery in its constitution in 1777, before it even joined the United States. New Hampshire didn't abolish slavery by law until 1857. Vermont was 80 years ahead. Number 27. New Hampshire's state motto is "Live free or die." It's on every license plate in the state. Vermont's motto is freedom and unity. 2 states, 2 completely different ideas about what freedom means and what it costs. Number 26. Vermont has more covered bridges per square mile than any other state in America. Over 100 still standing, most built in the 1800s. They were built to protect the wooden planking from weather. The covers have nothing to do with romance, but that didn't stop them from becoming Vermont's most photographed feature. We're at 26. Fact number 1 is a map. Most people who've lived in both states have never noticed it. Keep watching. Number 25. Vermont's largest city, Burlington, has a population of about 45,000. New Hampshire's largest city, Manchester, has about 120,000. Vermont has no city larger than 50,000. It is the most rural state by urban population in the entire country. New Hampshire is more suburban, especially near Boston. Same geography, fundamentally different settlement patterns. Number 24. New Hampshire has the highest literacy rate in the United States, 94.2%. Vermont ranks second. These two states, sitting side by side in the upper left corner of New England, are simultaneously the first and second most literate states in the country. No other pair of adjacent states comes close. Number 23. Vermont was the first state in America to legalize same-sex unions. In 2000, 9 years before same-sex marriage was legalized anywhere. In 2009, Vermont also became the first state to legalize it through the legislature rather than a court ruling. New Hampshire followed in 2010. Vermont got there first, both times. Number 22. New Hampshire has Dartmouth College, an Ivy League university founded in 1769, older than the United States. Vermont has the University of Vermont, founded 1791. Norwich University in Vermont is the oldest private military college in America. Between them, these two small states contain some of the oldest institutions of higher education in the Western Hemisphere. Number 21. Vermont has the second lowest population of any state, about 645,000, ahead of only Wyoming. New Hampshire has about 1.4 million, more than twice Vermont's population. Same rough land area, Vermont has about 70 people per square mile. New Hampshire has about 150. Both feel rural. One is twice as populated. Number 20. New Hampshire invented basic computer programming language. In 1964, professors at Dartmouth College developed BASIC, the programming language that put computing in the hands of ordinary people for the first time and eventually became the foundation for Microsoft. The personal computing revolution has a New Hampshire address. Number 19. Vermont's Lake Champlain was briefly recognized as the sixth Great Lake by U.S. Congress in 1998. The designation was quietly rescinded 18 days later after other states objected. Vermont had the sixth Great Lake for 18 days. New Hampshire's largest lake, Winnipesaukee, has never been a Great Lake. But at 72 square miles, it's one of the biggest in New England. Both states have lakes. Only one briefly had a Great Lake. Number 18. New Hampshire was the birthplace of the first American in space. Alan Shepard was from East Derry, New Hampshire. On May 5, 1961, he became the first American to travel into space aboard Freedom 7. Vermont has produced astronauts. But the first American to leave the Earth's atmosphere was a New Hampshire man. Number 17. Vermont's dairy industry is extraordinary relative to its size. About 124,000 cows and 500 dairy farms. At certain points in Vermont's history, it had more cows than people. It is the only state in the country where dairy farming is genuinely the cultural backbone of the economy. Number 16. New Hampshire's Mount Washington is the highest peak in the northeastern United States at 6,288 feet, higher than anything in Vermont, New York, or Massachusetts. On a clear day from the summit, you can see Vermont's Lake Champlain to the west and the Atlantic Ocean to the east. Mount Washington doesn't just hold wind records, it is the undisputed roof of New England. Top 15. Fact number 1 involves what these two states look like together, on a map. You'll want to pause when we get there. Number 15. Vermont has the highest property tax rate in the United States as a percentage of personal income. New Hampshire has no income tax and no sales tax, but very high property taxes of its own. Neither state is cheap to own property in. Vermont taxes virtually everything on top of that. New Hampshire taxes almost nothing else. Two philosophically opposite tax systems, both expensive in their own way. Number 14. New Hampshire is the first state in the country to vote in every U.S. presidential primary. State law requires it before any other primary. Tiny New Hampshire, population 1.4 million, gets first say on who could become president. The first presidential primary vote every 4 years is a New Hampshire vote. Number 13. Vermont's Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream Company gives its leftover ice cream waste to local farms to feed their pigs. The pigs apparently enjoy every flavor except mint Oreo. Vermont's most famous export goes from factory to farm to pig in one sustainable loop. New Hampshire's most famous export is tax-free shopping. Residents of Massachusetts and Vermont regularly cross the border to buy electronics and alcohol with no sales tax. Number 12. New Hampshire has an 18-mile coastline on the Atlantic, the shortest ocean coastline of any coastal state in America. Those 18 miles include Hampton Beach, one of the most visited beaches in New England. Vermont has zero ocean coastline. Vermont compensates with 212 miles of shoreline on Lake Champlain, which was briefly a Great Lake. New Hampshire chose the ocean. Vermont chose the lake. Number 11. Vermont's Cabot Creamery made the world's largest grilled cheese sandwich in 2000. Over 300 pounds, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. New Hampshire quarries granite used in construction projects across the country. Vermont makes the world's largest grilled cheese. New Hampshire quarries the rock that holds buildings together. Two states, very different claims to fame. Number 10. New Hampshire's first potato crop was planted at the Londonderry Common Field in 1719, the first potato ever grown on American soil. Vermont invented the first technique to photograph individual snowflakes. Wilson Bentley spent 45 years photographing snowflakes in the 1880s and proved that no two are identical. New Hampshire planted the first American potato. Vermont proved no two snowflakes are alike. Different obsessions. Both turned out to matter. Number 9. Vermont was an independent country, the Vermont Republic, from 1777 to 1791. It had its own currency, its own postal service, its own constitution, and its own president. For 14 years, Vermont was a sovereign nation sitting between the United States and Canada. New Hampshire was one of the original 13 colonies, at the founding part of the country from day one. Vermont joined 14 years late, by choice, after operating as its own country. Number 8. New Hampshire's state motto continues. Death is not the worst of evils. That second line rarely gets printed. Anti-government, anti-regulation, fiercely independent. Vermont's progressive tradition is almost the direct philosophical opposite. High services, high taxes, strong community investment. These two states share a 90-mile border and represent two of the most clearly contrasting political philosophies of any adjacent states in America. Number 7. Vermont was the first state in America to elect a socialist to Congress. Bernie Sanders, who served as a congressman from 1991 to 2007 and as a senator from 2007 onwards. New Hampshire's congressional delegation has historically leaned Republican. The same mountain range, the same weather, the same type of small-town New England, producing voters who are as ideologically different as any two adjacent populations in American politics. Number 6. New Hampshire's White Mountains contain the Presidential Range. Peaks named after U.S. presidents: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Eisenhower. Vermont's mountains are named after what they look like: Mansfield, Camel's Hump, Ellen. New Hampshire named its mountains after leaders. Vermont named its mountains after the landscape. Same geology, different values. 2 minutes to number 1. It's a map fact, and most people who've lived in both states have never spotted it. Number 5. Vermont has the highest percentage of forested land of any state in the continental United States, over 75% trees. New Hampshire is second at over 80% by some measures. These two small New England states are the two most forested states in the contiguous U.S. The forested corridor running between them is one of the most intact temperate forest ecosystems left in the eastern half of North America. Number 4. Vermont's Montpelier is the only state capital in America without a McDonald's, and the only state capital where you can walk from the train station to the Capitol building in under 5 minutes. Vermont's capital is essentially a large village that happens to contain a government. New Hampshire's capital is a city that contains a government. Neither is wrong. They are just very different ideas about what a capital should be. Number 3. Vermont was the first state to constitutionally ban all forms of slavery. In 2022, Vermont voters passed an amendment updating the original 1777 prohibition, which had left a loophole for indentured service. Vermont was first to ban slavery in 1777, first to completely close the loophole in 2022. 245 years of progress, still Vermont. Number 2. Vermont has produced 2 U.S. presidents, Chester Arthur and Calvin Coolidge. Coolidge was actually inaugurated in Vermont. When Warren Harding died suddenly in 1923, Coolidge was visiting his family farm in Plymouth Notch, Vermont. There was no telephone. His father, the notary public, swore him in by the light of a kerosene lamp at 2:47 in the morning. The most improvised presidential inauguration in American history happened on a Vermont farm in the middle of the night. Number 1. Vermont and New Hampshire sit side by side on the map. You've seen them your whole life. Vermont is shaped like a V, wider at the top, narrowing at the bottom, its southern tip pointing down. New Hampshire is almost the same shape, but upside down, wider at the bottom, narrowing at the top. Together, Vermont on the left, New Hampshire on the right, they form a rough rectangle. They fit together like 2 halves of a puzzle piece that was cut apart and placed side by side. 2 completely different states, opposite politics, opposite tax systems, opposite philosophies about what government is for. Same shape, just flipped. 35 differences, 2 states. And I haven't touched the ice fishing, the skiing, the sugar shacks, the politics of the Connecticut River Valley, or what actually drives people to choose one side of the border over the other. Vermont and New Hampshire look like twins from the highway. Same foliage, same white steeples, same cold winters, same general sense that nobody is in a particular hurry. But Vermont is a high-tax progressive republic that was briefly its own country and still votes like it. New Hampshire is a low-tax libertarian granite outpost that was at the American founding and still behaves like it. 2 states, 1 border, completely different ideas about what a society is for. And they've been sitting next to each other arguing about it since 1791. If you're from Vermont or New Hampshire, tell me in the comments which side of the border you're on, and why. Because I promise those comments will be worth reading. I'm covering all 50 states on this channel, starting with the ones that surprise you. Subscribe so you don't miss yours. Next up, West Virginia. And everything you think you know about it is wrong.